everyone, I'm Summer, and this is my channel, Red Lipstick Book Addict, where we like to talk about mysteries, romances, thrillers, and so much more. All opinions are welcome, of course, because here we like to talk about not only why we love to love books, but also why we love to hate them. And today we're talking about Bride by Ali Hazelwood. So this is a fantasy genre, and I'm just going to go ahead and read you the synopsis on the back. A vampire bride and an alpha werewolf form a dangerous alliance in this enthralling new paranormal romance. Misery Lark, daughter of a powerful vampire councilman, is an outcast. Her days of living anonymously among the humans are over. She has been called upon to uphold an alliance between the vampires and their mortal enemies, the Wares. Wares are ruthless and unpredictable, and their alpha, Lo Morland, is no exception. He rules his pack with absolute authority, but not without justice or feeling. It's clear from the way he tracks Misery's every movement that he doesn't trust her. If only he knew how right he was. Misery has her own reasons to agree to this marriage of convenience, reasons that have nothing to do with politics or alliances, and everything to do with the only thing she's ever cared about, and she's willing to do whatever it takes to take back what's hers. So, I will say that the cover of this and the synopsis is what drew me in. I was really intrigued because I've read some Ali Hazelwood books before. I've liked two of her books. One I did not like, and I'll review those some other time. But she's like the kind of book, she writes books that like you read, like it's like a light read. Like it's not like necessarily like the most in-depth writing, but like she has some interesting books about women in STEM, and usually all her books are romances as far as I've seen so far. And so I was curious to see how she was going to write a book that was a little bit out of her comfort zone, which is a paranormal romance. This book also tries to be a little bit of a mystery, but I'll get into that later. First of all, I want to talk about some of the things that I felt about this book. So some of the things that I felt was, first of all, the first 60 to 70 pages were really disappointing to me. I honestly didn't even want to finish it at first because it was like taking so long for the plot to pick up pace, and it felt like the genre was not very well developed, which is something that is like becoming my pet peeve with reading books, is whenever it's like marketed one way and then you read the book and it's like not what you really felt like you were walking into. So that bothered me a little bit, but then it finally picks up pace. The writing style is very, how do I put this? It doesn't flow. It's not poetic. It doesn't sound like a writer wrote it. Like, I hate to say it, but it's just true. Like, you could tell some of the ways that she writes stuff, it sounds like she has a really hard time stepping out of her textbook voice, like somebody that's analytical. But then she also tries to be quirky, so then it's just like then the quirky lines really jump out at you because it's like, wait, what? Like, you were just writing in a way that was very boxy and weird, and like you're trying too hard to explain this world to us without making it sound interesting. That was another thing, world building. The world building sucked. Sorry, but it did. And I was excited because I like fantasy, so I wanted to see her create this like really cool utopian or dystopian society that was complex, that was with vampires and humans and wares and how they interacted with each other, and what were the communities like that were mainly vampire or were, and how did that contrast with the human communities. But there was nothing like that really in there, so it was disappointing on that end. And then another thing I wanted to talk about is the length of this book is so long, and it's just not necessary. Like, it's 396 pages long, and I just think it could have been edited a little bit to where we didn't have so much unnecessary stuff, and we kept it in a way that flowed, and the pacing was something that was enjoyable for the reader, because I didn't feel the pacing was enjoyable very much until, honestly, like probably middle to end. and with this book being like 400 pages, the middle is at page 200. So think about that. And the thing I'm the most excited to share with you are the cringy lines in this that were just way too cringy to not talk about because they were so out of pocket, and it almost made me wonder. I think sometimes when writers do this, it's like, is that a way for them to get people to talk about their book? Because it's like, what the actual heck? Like, and I don't know if that's what she's doing or if she's just trying too hard to be funny and it's not landing right. But the way this woman writes similes and metaphors is the worst I've ever seen in my life. So we'll start with this one, and I'm not even gonna give you context. All it is she stares at me with a mix of worry and hostility, like my kink is burning crickets with kerosene. I just now noticed the alliteration in that, though. I do enjoy that part of it. But like, that's the best way you can think to describe somebody making a facial expression. It's just like, I get that she's trying to be funny, but it's just so jarring, especially like with the rest of the writing. When she puts stuff like that in there, it doesn't land right for me. And then our next cringy line says, but also Juno, thoroughly inspecting Max for any mortal wounds I might have inflicted, and the older man and the ginger from the ceremony, who stare at me as though I just told the orphanage kids that Santa isn't real. Now this one, I don't even know whether to call this one cringy or just bad writing, because it's just, it's just so out of pocket. Like, the orphanage kids, Santa Claus, where is this coming from? And it's just not, it's not funny. I know that she's trying to be funny, but it's just not funny to me. It's like, I don't know if she's just like struggling with with her descriptiveness about like people's mannerisms or facial expressions, but doing that is just, there's got to be a better way to do it if you want to be quirky and throw something weird in there. There's got to be a way to do it that just kind of flows a little bit better with the rest of the writing. And the next one, so far, humans are worse. They do shit like burning the Amazon rainforest or leaving the toilet seat up at night. Anyway, anything you need from me? It's just like, what? Who talks like this in real life? No one. I don't know. It's just weird. It's just anytime she's trying to compare something, it's like something so crazy. And the next one, let's move on. Okay, this is a good one. So she's talking about Juno, who is running around naked. She's a werewolf, and the werewolves, I think this was supposed to hint to us that, like, basically the werewolves are kind of like the Hulk. When they get big, their clothes rip. So when they transform back, I guess they're usually naked or something, or their clothes are ripped and hanging off of them. So Juno just shifted from werewolf back to human. And it says, she emerges from the trees looking beautiful and powerful and naked. Now that one's fine, but then it says, newborn just slithered out of the birth canal naked. Excuse me, what? That made me want to gag. Like, that made me want to throw up. And then slithered? Ugh. Just so gross. But I guess that we're supposed to feel gross in that moment, so I'll give her that. But I just hated that line so much. Okay. I'll do the pink tabs later. The pink tabs is stuff that I liked. So I will get into that in a bit. Okay, here's another cringy one. Now, this isn't necessarily about how cringy it is. I'll explain the context of how I feel about this after I read it. So it says, and yet the more I know him, the more I find him magnetic, unique, genuinely decent in a world where no one seems to be. And the reason why this line bothered me, it didn't bother me the first time I read it. It bothered me the second time when I was looking over the book to review my notes for this video. It bothered me because it reminded me why I don't like one of the tropes in this book, the romance tropes. So I do like the whole vampire with werewolf thing. That's cool, whatever. But the whole thing about Misery the vampire nobody loves her, she's so unlovable or whatever, she has no self-esteem. So then this werewolf who doesn't even treat her good, like up until she reciprocates some kind of attraction to him, he's not that nice to her for a long time, and then he's finally decent to her, and it's like she worships the ground he walks on. And I hate this trope where the girl with really low self-esteem falls in love with the first guy that treats her like she's even half human. It's like, get better standards. And like, I don't know, maybe you need to figure yourself out and make more friends, develop your identity more before you're just falling in love with the first person that treats you like you're worth anything, because then you're gonna put your whole identity in that person. That's how I feel about that trip. But that's a whole other story for you. Oh, one of my tabs just fell, so I won't go into that one. These little tabs. I love them though, especially for videos like this. Okay, so, oh, this one I'm embarrassed to talk about. So there are some like good smut scenes in this. I will give the book that. But smut is kind of hard to mess up. But you'd be surprised what people are capable of. Smut is like, you know, spicy scenes, sexy scenes, whatever. So there's like a few smut scenes in here where like it's going good, it's pretty good, and then they say the word labia, and it just gives me such an ick that I never want to read romance again, which I will, but that is just like, you just ruined the whole scene. Who's labia? Really? Ew. Like, I get that Ali Hazelwood has a background in science, but labia is not a sexy word, I'm sorry. Okay, so yeah, I don't know if you agree with me, but those are pretty out of pocket to me. Just to give you a little bit of a sense of like how I felt about the writing, I had to mention those. Although other well-known authors like Colleen Hoover are known for having some weird out-of-pocket lines. I'm going to start pointing them out more often in my book reviews, because I think that's kind of makes it fun. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the pink tabs. The pink tabs are the opposite. They don't give me the ick. They're the scenes that I actually liked. Now I only have 3, but maybe 4. No, I have 4. Okay. So here's one. It says, "He studies me in the moonlit air for far too long. That was a badass speech, Misery. Badass is my middle name. Your middle name is Lynn. Shit. Stop reading my file. Never." I just thought that was like a cute exchange between Misery and, oh my gosh, I forgot the guy's name. Lo Moreland. I feel like we could have had a better name for him as an alpha. The alpha's name is Lo. I don't know, it's not really badass enough for me. Misery though, I gotta give credit where credit's due. That's just, to me, Misery is like an awesome vampire name. It's very goth to me. Without like being, I don't know, too obvious, like Bloodsucker or something. But it's a good one. I like Misery. But Lo, it's just like, it sounds like just a human name. So, it's not that good. Ow. Oh, I just got the worst cramp. Okay, so now we're gonna move on to our next pink tab. Have to be careful or my tabs fall out. Okay, come on, there it is. All right, so oh no, that was just no, I'm not gonna do that one. Okay, now this is the most romantic line in the whole book. So it's something that Lo, the alpha wear, says to Misery, and she doesn't even know he's talking about her, but we as the reader know because it's painfully obvious. And it says, "You think, but you don't know. You don't know anything about what it's like to find your other half," he continues, voice low and sharp. "I would take anything she chose to give me, the tiniest fraction or her entire world. I would take her for a single night knowing that I'll lose her by morning, and I would hold on to her and never let go. I would take her healthy or sick or tired or angry or strong, and it would be my fucking privilege. I would take her problems, her gifts, her moods, her passions, her jokes, her body. I would take every last thing if she chose to give it to me. Oh, and then he says, but I won't take from her. That was really romantic. I did like that one. Oh, I am gonna say the biggest thing that bothered me about the romance between Lo and Misery is that, first of all, Lo is so mean to Misery when he first met her. He didn't give her anything, any entertainment. So like they get this arranged marriage basically, where they're trying to secure an alliance by marrying one another. An alliance that will keep the peace between the Wares and the vampires. And it's already painful enough for Misery to do this. And the Wares are so unwelcoming to her. Lo is so unwelcoming to her. And they just keep her cooped up. She's not even allowed to do anything but walk around the house aimlessly. And it's just really sad. Like, they don't make it enjoyable for her. There's no entertainment. And it struck me as odd that, spoiler alert, later on, whenever we find out what happened to her friend Serena, she's locked in like a dungeon and she has all these books to read. And it hit me like, wow, even Misery was not given a book to read. She wasn't given any form of entertainment. They just threw her in the house and they didn't make anything enjoyable for her. And like, you know, she lives off of blood. They'd have these family dinners together and they wouldn't even try to accommodate her. They gave her blood bags cold in a refrigerator. And so she was, well, even though the vampires are supposed to feed alone, so I guess I kind of get that. But it's just weird that she was treated so bizarrely. And then it's like, I don't know, it kind of reminded me of Beauty and the Beast, how like Belle falls for the beast, and it's like kind of like Stockholm syndrome and just a hint of bestiality. That reminded me of it. It was like Beauty and the Beast, but like really, really bad. I like that there was like stuff about a mystery in it. I wish that we could have expanded on that a little bit more, about the friend Serena and her disappearance and why did she disappear? What did she know too much about? That was an interesting plot that was super underdeveloped. And then by the time we figured out what was going on, it's like, so why have I been reading for like all these pages and you didn't give any kind of fun hints for that? Like, there were some good plot twists in this book. I will give it that. I really enjoyed the plot twist. But they were so far at the end. And the sad thing is, I don't think a lot of people would even get that far. The only reason why I finished this book was because I knew I wanted to do a review on it. If I hadn't set out to do a review on this book, I might have never finished it. I'm not really one to like DNF a book very often, because once it's on my TBR and I start reading it, I almost feel committed. Like, I want to finish it. It feels so unsatisfying to not finish it, especially if you go like months without reading it again, because then it's like you forget what was even going on in the book. It's not as fresh. So yeah, now let's get into the overall ratings. So I'll just go to my notes here. Oh, one thing I always like to talk about in books is my favorite character. My favorite character was Serena, which is funny because we didn't really hear a lot about her until the end. But she was my favorite. She had this kind of, I don't know, her sense of humor. I thought the other girl, Misery, is funny too, but it's like her inner dialogue is so weird because the writing style is bad. So it's like, but Serena, like, I don't know, she just has this sense of humor about her. And then I love that she's like the best friend. And then, of course, spoiler alert, whenever there is a scene that I felt bad for liking, but I liked a lot. So Misery's father is a vampire councilman. He's in a position of power, and he is so abusive to Misery. Like, he does not care about her life, not even her life. He treats her like she's less than nothing, like dirt. and it's really sad. So whenever there's a scene where he's just verbally and emotionally abusing her as usual, and he even tries to kill her, her friend Serena and her mate Lo go in for the kill, and they don't end up killing him, but like they get back at him, and it's like so satisfying to finally see this villain in the story get what's coming to him, because he is a terrible character, but I enjoyed how much that we were made to hate him, because that's how you know it's a good villain, and I love a good villain, so I enjoyed that. And yeah, so my overall rating, it's harsh. My overall rating is 1.5 stars. That is the lowest rating I've given on a book on this channel. I think you kind of know why, because of everything I've said. And then the plot development, pacing, super slow. That's my second least favorite thing about the book. 1.5 stars. I almost gave it 2 just because I do think at the end we did really good about the pacing, but it took so long that like who's gonna get that far, you know, unless you're really committed to reading the book, or you know, the rare occurrence that you might have liked it. So yeah, the pacing and the plot development, it was like a disappointment. I think the book had potential and it just didn't. It fell flat. And the writing style, I almost don't even want to say this because I feel bad. I put 0 stars. I might give it half a star, because I don't know. I am not normally this harsh, but like this was just the worst writings that I've seen. And I have read Ali Hazelwood's books before. It wasn't my first introduction to her. I've read books by her that I like. This might be the worst book I've ever read. Just because the writing style, that was the biggest thing that was like a big no for me. And then the readability, I had a hard time with that one because it does pick up. It does. You have to be patient with it. I'll give it like 1 or 2 stars. Readability. It's not like an easily digestible book. You know, there are some books that you can just flip right through them. You're done in a day. All right. This book, it was painful for me to finish. Like, it was painful for me to keep having to read it. I had to set a time and like time myself just to get myself to finish the book. So that's not very good readability. The defined genre, I'm gonna give that 2 stars. I think it was really good about defining itself as a fantasy and a romance, although the world building sucked. So, but I know that there was an attempt to make it into a mystery, and I feel like if we would have seen what we got in the end, if we would have seen more of that in the beginning, then the mystery aspect would have been really good, but it just wasn't because it took so long for us to get there. Almost like it was decided like last minute. And then character development, that might have been one of the better things about the book. Character development was good. Lo Moreland, the Were Alpha, he definitely got to be more of a likable character, but you know, we knew he was gonna be more likable eventually. He was the typical sullen, what do they call it, brooding character that's like angry and just unemotional and deep, rough around the edge. You know, he's the typical character, and then eventually we see there's more to him than meets the eye. So whatever, he had the character development, but it was super predictable. Misery, I would say she had good character development, because she finally learns like more and more to stand up for herself, which I did appreciate because she needed it. She was a doormat. And then just finding out about Serena was nice. I liked the character development of the dad a lot, the vampire councilman, which is just such a boring thing to call. Like, we couldn't have a more gothic title for him. He's a vampire. Like, all we could do is councilman. that was weird. Like, why are you making it so boring and political? Like, it's a fantasy novel. Make it fun. Make it whimsical. Where's the whimsy? And yeah, so I liked the character development of the dad because he really becomes this just heinous villain by the end of the book that you just want him to suffer. And so his development was really good. And I guess that's it. That's pretty much all that I have to say about the book. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed those cringy lines that I decided to pick out for you. And you know, there's good and bad. I do feel like the bad outweighed the good, but if you want to find out for yourself, despite all the spoilers I just gave you, go for it. Read the book and tell me what you think. Thanks for watching my video, and please like and subscribe. See you again next week.